Good evening. It's a great honor to be with you today, and I would like to thank you for inviting me. Thank you for establishing the chair position, and thank you at George Mason University for creating that position for us and bringing us back to Washington, D.C. In the next 20 minutes, I would like to reflect on this development at George Mason University. And there are a lot of other interesting developments in George Mason University, very exciting ones. 24-hour coffee house open. You can always go and drink your coffee at 3 o'clock in the morning. But in addition to chair position that ended up hiring 2 professors rather than 1, we are also establishing a Center for Islamic Studies. We have 15 professors, very distinguished professors, who teach different courses on Islamic studies, and we think this is actually one of the strongest campuses in the country in terms of its diversity and the core faculty in Islamic studies. And we will soon establish our master's program in Islamic studies. So please send us your best children and grandchildren or nephews and nieces for study. And as a historian, of course, I would like to stop and reflect on how we came to this position. And it's actually closely related to Ismail Farooqui, and I would like to, in that regard, use this first lecture opportunity to talk about the history of Islamic studies in America from Ismail Farooqui up to today, and talk about my own research just a little bit in that regard, and think about the implications of a growing number of Muslim scholars and scholars of Islamic studies, non-Muslim scholars of Islamic studies, growing in the sense that there's an amazing boom of scholarship which is unparalleled in the history of Islamic studies that I will try to tell you what it means for America and what it means for the Muslim world in general. As Shamat Talib mentioned, Ismail Farooqui was the founder of the Islam section way back in 1972-73 at the American Academy of Religion. And at that time, it was not that easy. He started in the American Academy of Religion as a subgroup within the history of Christianity. And it was only on the history of Christian-Muslim encounters. And it took a couple of years for him to make it accepted in 76. But look what happened in the 30 years since then. The number of scholars that belong to the Islam group of American Academy of Religion now is about 300. Almost 200 of them will be professors, 100 of them are graduate students. It's the fastest growing group, and it's also the group that is most competitive and most difficult to get your papers accepted. The ratio of acceptance of your paper to be presented in that academy, in the Islam group, is less than 15%. Out of 100 presentations, only 15 are accepted, which is much competitive than any other section. And IIIT was always connected to this development, so I see them as great investors in the investment, in the sense that I wish they were running my retirement fund from 10 professors in one place. We're coming to 300. And there are more of them are now in graduate study, obviously, in Islamic studies and PhD programs. But we do think that coming 200 PhDs, and I know that some of the IIIT founders have their daughters and sons in PhD programs in Islamic studies at Harvard and Georgetown. They will get jobs, and I would like to talk about that amazing opportunity to be able to get jobs once you finish your PhD. But American academia will be able to assimilate, we think. What does that mean is that every professor have to write 1 book to get tenure. So we expect almost 200 to 300 original research books on Islamic studies alone in the next 5 to 10 years. This is only the religious studies Islam section. If you look at Middle Eastern studies, a more interdisciplinary group that works on Middle East in general, their membership is about to be almost 3,000. They were also established around the same time, 68, 69, but 3,000 is also an amazing number. Why is there such a boom, such a growth that we don't see anywhere else? And you can think that of course the immediate answer will be a very natural answer. America is a superpower. America, you can also say America is an imperial power, and there's a connection between academia, knowledge production, and political, military, and economic interests. But that will be a very simplistic answer, obviously. It is true that America is a great power, and we learn from Edward Said's book on Orientalism that there is some sort of a connection between your material, military, economic interests and the production of knowledge about a society. But there are a couple of reasons why this model cannot explain this growth. One of them is that it's actually more than America needs, this amount of scholarship, compared to China, which is also a great power, Russia, or Japan. I lived in Japan for a while. Then the numbers are proportionately higher. This shows that there is something more than this material interest of America's interest in the Middle East or the Islamic world. Moreover, many of the scholars, either in AAR or in MESA, there are 3,000 of them, they are vehemently against American imperial politics, or what we call American military adventures in the Middle East. They are very critical of American foreign policy in this region. So if they were the ones who will serve the American interest, these are the wrong people in many ways. And we can understand this very easily in the last, actually 7, 8 years. People in Washington, D.C., we call them neocon circles, were actually very upset at all these scholars of Islamic studies and Middle Eastern studies, and they want them to be cut off from government funding and shut down. And they went ahead and established their own society instead of Middle Eastern studies. Bernard Lewis and Fuad Ajami has their own separate society of scholarship. They think this is more objective, but their membership can only be 1% of MESA. They only have, I think, 20 members as far as I know last time. Thus, we should see this development in a more intellectual manner, in its more intellectual, internationalist, humanist dimensions. What are they? I could come up with, just in terms of discussion today, 3 important reasons why America became such an important center for scholarship on Islam and teaching and research on Islam and the Muslim world. One of them is a trend in the 70s and 80s and 90s among the American historians and social scientists to overcome their Eurocentric Western biases. And that was a genuinely humanist trend that at one point the scholars have realized that we are teaching our children the story of Western white people from Greeks to Europeans and to Americans and neglecting the rest of the world. And that didn't seem to be right to many people. It wasn't very convincing. There were many objections. Moreover, all the social sciences were generalizing based on this small group of people and creating social sciences. The objections to that movement came from many, many circles. Most of we call this post-colonial movement, a lot of immigrant intellectuals, but a lot of American and European intellectuals were also disappointed with this movement. Thus, in my field, for example, in the field of history, there was a strong world history movement, and we're lucky to have one of the leaders of this movement, Professor Peter Stearns, provost of George Mason University, and it's not accidental that this chair position was created under his leadership as well. These scholars of world history was arguing that all American college students who were studying introductory Western civilization courses should be taught actually a world history course. Instead of studying Greeks and Europeans and Roman Empire alone, they should study the Muslim world, China, India. This way they have a better understanding of where humanity is coming from, and they have a more fair global understanding of things. And there was, in fact, an interesting battle that Peter will have probably witnessed and fought between the advocates of Western civilization courses versus the world history courses. But within the American context, of course, this has a lot of implications for America's diversity. America was also becoming very diverse around the same time. In a classroom with Chinese students, African Americans, or Muslim students at George Mason, if we just only teach the story of Europeans, students will be asking, what about us? Why don't you teach Confucianism or Islam? And I think this helped this important movement that actually Edward Said symbolized in many ways, is that many of the non-Western societies, through the scholarship and historical writing, were dehumanized, what we call them. And I think that's what some of the sources of Islamophobia, the fear of Muslims, was coming from. It's ignorance, not knowing about them. And also thinking that they are just not normal people like us. Because you don't know anything about them. You don't know their scholars. You don't know their history. You think that history is always made by European Christians. And I think against this tradition of dehumanize, what we call the dehumanized a historical picture of non-Europeans, I think these world history courses and many other parallel scholarly attempts help to rehumanize Muslims.